today's episode I'm going to show you how to make a delicious, thick, creamy, stick to your ribs mac and cheese, topped with a sweet, slow cooked barbecue short rib. To start, we are going to need approximately 600 grams of short rib, which we're going to place into a Dutch oven or casserole dish. We're going to coat that with 2 tablespoons of paprika for sweetness, 1 tablespoon of onion powder, 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika, which will add a smoky undertone that you'll often get with barbecue meats. This adds an extra layer of flavour to the dish. We'll then add 4 to 5 whole cloves of garlic, which have been crushed. The reason I chose to do this rather than chop or use puree is the meat is going to be slow cooked 4 hours in a beef broth. These garlic cloves become soft and delicious, taste little morsels which work very well with the sweet barbecue meat. We then rub the spice mixture and the garlic into the meat, making sure it is thoroughly coated before leaving it to rest for at least 2 hours to soak up the flavour of the herbs and spices. Finally, we're going to cover the beef short rib with 1 litre of beef stock before realising how close the camera actually is and needing to wipe the steam off the lens. There we go. We now place this, well actually the first thing we cover it and we place it in the oven, which has been preheated to 200 degrees Celsius or 400 Fahrenheit. And we cook it for 3 to 4 hours or until the meat falls off the bone, as can be seen here. For the final stage of this dish, we place all ingredients into a stove top pan, including the bones to deepen the flavour. We bring that mixture to a boil and cook this through until the sauce reduces and becomes relatively thick when stirred. To this mixture we now add 3 tablespoons of tomato ketchup and 3 tablespoons of dark brown sugar. We then mix this together, and unfortunately my clumsy arms hide this final step, but we also add 1 tablespoon each of honey and Dorsetshire sauce. Now Dorsetshire sauce is quite a specific sauce to get hold of. You can substitute this for Worcestershire sauce, or a simple light soy sauce can be used as a replacement. After we've added this, we stir it through once more, and we then simmer this down until the meat literally crumbles at the press of a fork. And now we have our delicious, sweet and sticky short rib. And there we go, the final product. And now on to the mac and cheese. To start with the mac and cheese, we're going to get a pan and a sieve, and then realise that we've done this backwards, and instead we need to get our 3 tomatoes. Now, shock horror, yes, I put tomatoes in my macaroni cheese. My Mrs Faithless, loves tomatoes in her mac and cheese, so we always tend to put these in there. However, they are optional, and it does nothing if you remove them from the recipe. So what we're going to do, we're going to chop these into small chunks, place them in a sieve over a pan, and then we're going to add a pinch of salt to these chopped tomatoes. This will help draw out the juice and also accentuate the sweetness of the tomatoes themselves. Whilst the tomatoes are resting for an hour, we're going to take 250 grams of dry macaroni pasta and cook this till barely al dente in salted water, as you can see here. We're then going to very quickly drain this pasta and toss it straight back into the pan to ensure just a little bit of pasta water remains in the pan. We've also grated 150 grams each of Gruyere cheese, Manchego cheese and cheddar cheese for our cheese sauce mixture. Now, to do the cheese sauce mixture, we're going to melt 75 grams of butter in a pan. Now this is where the battery ran out of the camera, so what we did with this, we added 4 tablespoons of all-purpose plain flour into the melted butter, and we mixed that through and cooked the flour out. Basically when the smell of flour dissipates, we're then ready. I then started to add a mixture of 300 ml of double cream and 600 ml of milk to this flour and butter mixture, making a sort of bechamel sauce. Slowly adding this mixture and whisking continuously to ensure no lumps appear. And then finally we added salt to season. When we have our desired consistency, we're going to start adding our cheeses. We start with adding 90 grams of cream cheese. I chose Philadelphia because, well, it's a personal favourite of mine. I like the thickness, I like the texture, and I like the flavour. We're going to whisk this into the sauce until it is melted, and then we're going to add approximately half the grated cheese mixture. So in goes our cheese, and we're going to keep this on a low heat and keep whisking to ensure that the mixture does not catch to the bottom of the pan, because we don't want a burnt flavour in our cheese sauce. Once that is melted, we can then throw it in to our drained pasta and give that a good mix. The reason we only used half our grated cheese is that we are going to use the remaining half to layer the macaroni cheese like a lasagna. Trust me, this does work. So here we have our macaroni cheese mixture, all ready to be plated up, ready to be baked in the oven. So we're going to get an oven proof dish like so. Now at this stage I split into my mixture into 3 dishes, one for tomatoes, one for a very fussy little girl, and one for me later on. We place a layer of macaroni into the base of the dish alongside some of the grated cheese, like so. We're then going to add the chopped tomatoes, followed by some more of the grated cheese that remains, and then we're going to top that with another layer of macaroni cheese mix before finally coating it with the remaining grated cheese. We're then going to place it in a 200-degree oven or 400 Fahrenheit for 30 minutes until the cheese is bubbling and has a nice browning to it. And there we have it, a delicious, thick, rich 4-cheese mac and cheese. Or should we call it mac and 4 cheese? We're going to take our slow cooked barbecue short rib and place this on top, either hot or cold works, before garnishing with spring onion greens to add a little colour. Right, to do this we're going to melt some butter in a pan, and once it's melted we're going to throw in our white onion which we have diced, and we're going to cook that through until it becomes soft. Once the onion is cooked through, we can add our arborio rice. And we stir this through, allowing it to soak up the butter and the flavour of the onions. Once that is mixed, we're going to throw in our small bottle of white wine, and we're going to cook that at a medium heat until the wine has virtually evaporated and that smell of alcohol has disappeared. Once the wine is evaporated, we can add our first ladle of chicken stock, and the trick here is to continuously stir until the chicken stock has evaporated. As I sort of demonstrate, but every now and again I was keeping my eye out on a second recipe I was currently cooking. Once it is cooked down, we're going to continue adding ladles of chicken stock. Again, after each ladle, cooking through until the stock has been soaked up by the rice. After approximately 1 litre of chicken stock, the rice should be al dente and be soft enough to eat, yet firm to the bite. And here we have our finished risotto. I'm going to throw in a knob of butter and stir that through before adding Parmesan cheese. I do this around 3 times, take a small handful, stir it in, and then taste, and then add more until I get the taste that I desire. After 24 hours, our risotto rice is ready to be used. So here I've got some diced mozzarella. I'm going to take a small portion of the rice, surround a mozzarella piece and firmly roll that into a ball. I'm going to repeat that process until all our risotto rice has been used. As you can see, I've got a lot of left. Once all our arancini bowls are ready and made, we can refrigerate them for 10 minutes or even half an hour just to let them cool and become more solid. And then it's a case of coating in breadcrumbs as we would any other breadcrumb related recipe. To do that, we're going to simply just have some seasoned flour, an egg wash mix and some breadcrumbs. Now some people like to double dip theirs. In this case I only single dipped my arancini this time. That is coating flour, egg, breadcrumbs and then leave to rest. So we take each arancini bowl. First thing that we do is we're going to dip it in the flour mix. We're going to thoroughly coat it in the seasoned flour. We're then going to add it to our egg wash and ensure that every part of the arancini bowl is coated in the egg wash. That ensures that the breadcrumbs actually stick. And after coating it in egg wash, we're going to coat it in our breadcrumbs. The reason I was showing the hands is basically there is a simple rule that you should use one for dry and one for wet. I always confuse it and always end up with both my hands getting wet and covered in flour and breadcrumbs. Nonetheless, here's my first arancini bowl looking ready to be fried, and I'm going to continue that process until all my arancinis have been prepared. After they've been prepared, we're going to fry them at medium heat for between 8 and 10 minutes till they are crisp on the outside and melted and warm on the centre. And here we have the finished article, which I've served on a bed of salad.
Hello, welcome to the Faceless Chef UK. In today's episode, I'm going to show you how to create a delicious carbonara, as authentic as I can. Yes, I understand traditionalists may pick this recipe apart, but I enjoyed it, as I am sure you will. Apologies for the absence. Unfortunately, this is not my full-time career, and due to this, children, health and family, I took an extended break over the Christmas period. First, we start by placing 100 grams of spaghetti in salted or boiling water and cook until al dente, soft but firm enough to the bite. Note, once it's cooked, we do not get rid of this pasta water. This delicious salty starchy mix is key to this recipe, and to be fair, any other pasta recipe in the future for that matter. We really enjoy pasta dishes in this family, and often the best pasta dishes are those with few ingredients. Quick and simple sometimes is the best. If you like Italian style food, feel free to check out the arancini video I did towards the end of last year, and hopefully I should be able to link that just above the screen. Whilst the pasta is cooking, I'm going to mix in a bowl 1 whole egg and 2 egg yolks. I'm going to thoroughly mix them until thoroughly combined before adding 150 grams of pecorino cheese. Once we mix this cheese in, the mixture should be quite thick, and alongside our pasta water, this is a mixture that will form the base of our sauce for the pasta. For some reason, the guanciale prep did not film, so this is around 150 grams of guanciale, which I will slice thinly before halving each strip into 2 again. We fry this in a pan, gently and over medium heat until the guanciale is brown and crisp, leaving the oil in the pan, but we're careful to ensure we remove half guanciale for later. If you don't have guanciale, you can always use, and I say this in order of preference, pancetta, lardons, or quite simply, bacon. We are going to leave the oil in the pan, however, because this will help with our sauce mixture later on. So once the guanciale is cooked, we're going to add our cooked pasta, ensuring to include some of that delicious starchy water. And we're going to continually stir this. You will notice when the food begins to emulsify as it takes on a slightly thicker consistency and will begin to stick to the pasta itself. At this point, we are going to remove it from the heat completely. Once we've continuously stirred this mixture, we'll then, as I said before, remove it from the heat completely, and we will top it with our egg and pecorino mixture. Not before seasoning very well with black pepper. As you can see, I've fully got the heat turned off now. It's important to do this because if we don't do this, the egg will actually curdle and cook as you stir it through the mixture, so we definitely want that heat off. So here is our egg and cheese mixture. It does look quite thick at this stage, but that's fine. We're going to continuously stir this through. And this is one of those moments where you decide whether or not you want a quite saucy version or just something that barely coats the pasta. If you want it quite saucy like my missus, pardon the pun, you will add a little bit more pasta water and continuously stir whilst that mixture emulsifies and firmly coats the pasta. You have to excuse the big lumps of pecorino in there, but it's I found it very awkward actually when grating it. It did stick and break apart a little bit, but nonetheless it was all good. So once we've done this, we're actually going to coat again with black pepper, give it another season of black pepper before adding the mixture into a mixing bowl. And in that mixing bowl we're actually just going to, for about a minute, toss it over and over, flipping the mixture, making sure that not only that sauce is coating the pasta, but also that it is well and truly emulsified. So we're then going to place this in a serving bowl. Look at that, absolutely delicious. Doing the voice for this, I'm thinking I could just murder another bowl of that, but I've run out of guanciale. I may have to put some more in order, or refer to my earlier points and just make some pancetta later on in the week. So once in the bowl, we're going to take half a guanciale, not half guanciale, but the guanciale half that we reserved earlier, and we're actually going to place that on top of the pasta. And again, after that, we will season with black pepper, and finally with some more of that grated pecorino. Just taking care to tidy up and clean our bowl. There's our black pepper. And here comes the remainder of guanciale. And then the grated pecorino. Some people do prefer a little bit of grated parmesan at this point, but I had some left over, so I thought I might as well use this. In today's episode, I show you how to make the slightly complicated Banh Xeo, or Vietnamese crispy pancakes. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to prep our Vietnamese pancake batter, and to do that we're going to do the flour with a mixture of water and coconut milk and some finely diced spring onions. In this case I used 2. I'm going to add that all into a bowl with a bit of a sprinkle of turmeric and salt, and then add the milk and water to form a batter. We can then leave that to rest for a couple of hours. To make our dipping sauce, we're going to add water and 2 tablespoons of caster sugar, a squeeze of lime juice, 2 tablespoons of fish sauce, and 2 diced bird's eye chilies. We're then going to finally slice our mushrooms, and in a bowl we're going to gather our coriander and our lettuce leaves to serve.
In a preheated griddle, we're going to throw a tablespoon of oil before cooking through our remaining spring onions. We're going to add our sliced mushrooms and cook them through. Now traditionally most people would use prawns rather than mushrooms, but I just fancied something different for a change. And to the mushroom and spring onions we add our pork before cooking that through. And when that is thoroughly browned and cooked, we're going to throw in our bean sprouts. Now mine were pre-cooked, so didn't need too much cooking. If they are dry, they will obviously need prepping and cooking prior to adding to the mixture. And what follows next is one of the most painful experiences I've had as a home chef, and that is cooking our pancakes. Again, it wasn't ideal. My frying pan isn't the best at the moment for cooking pancakes. So you add the 1 ladle full of your batter to the frying pan, and we cook this for a very long time until it starts to crisp at the bottom. We then add our mixture to half before covering with a lid and cooking until everything starts to crisp at the edges. At that point we're ready to flip the pancake ever so slightly. As you can see, I've not done that good a job, but it's not bad. And there we have our crispy pancake. I'm going to remove that from the pan and serve that on lettuce leaves, top with coriander, and serve it with our dipping sauce. And here we have our final product. Was this worth all the effort and the painstaking method of making the pancakes? Probably not, but it was delicious, it was tasty, and it's definitely worth trying.
Delicious recipes that will tantalise your taste buds. Want to add a delicious sweet tangy flavour to your burgers, meats, or even your cheese and crackers? Watch no further whilst I show you how to make an absolutely stunning. We're going to start by caramelising some onions to make a delicious chutney that will add a sweet and tangy flavour to our burgers. This takes the most time, so we start by slicing a medium red and white onion and finally chopping 3 cloves of garlic before gently, and I mean gently, cooking these over the hob in a little olive oil. After about 40 minutes the onions will have a nice brown colour to them, but not charred. At this stage we can add around 80 ml of red wine vinegar. The eagle-eyed will notice I've used white wine vinegar. This is a good substitute if, like me, you've run out of red wine vinegar. We then add a generous 2 to 3 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, 50 to 80 grams of dark brown sugar, and depending on taste, 1 tablespoon of paprika. Again, cooking this down until a beautiful caramel has formed. To check, drag your spoon across the surface of the pan. If the syrup takes a few seconds to reform and recover, then it's perfect. If it recovers the surface quickly, give it another 2 minutes. We can store this in mason jars and this will keep for months. However, it doesn't last long in my household, so I just place this in a standard jar. And there you have it. An absolutely delicious, sweet, tangy, caramelised onion.
Hello and welcome to another full-length instructional recipe for the Faceless Chef UK. In tonight's episode, I'm going to show you how to make buffalo wings. Absolutely perfect for Super Bowl Sunday, served with a delicious blue cheese dipping sauce. Over this week I should hopefully be able to show you a couple of recipes, including this one, which is just perfect for vegging out for a movie night or, on this occasion, the big game. The sauces, fries and wings can be cooked virtually in any order. However, it's best to do the sauces first, just to ensure they have time to rest and the flavours to develop, whilst ensuring the chicken pre-coats in corn flour and egg for at least 1 hour, if not 2. We start by trimming the tip and splitting the wing into a wingette or flap and the drumette. After preparing all the wings, we're going to coat these in around 3 to 5 tablespoons of corn flour, or more depending on the amount of wings we have prepared. We will season these and add 1 whole egg before mixing thoroughly together and leaving to rest for at least 2 hours. Whilst these are resting, we're going to prepare our blue cheese sauce. The blue cheese is simple. We place 200 grams of Stilton with 2 cloves of crushed or chopped garlic before adding 60 ml each of sour cream and mayonnaise,
alongside 3 tablespoons of milk and salt and pepper to season. We will then blend this mixture until smooth. You may wish to pulse instead if you want a thicker, chunkier sauce with big chunks of Stilton within it. Once that's blended, we can refrigerate for 2 to 3 hours or until needed. I do recommend leaving for 2 hours as that gives a better flavour. For the buffalo sauce, we're going to want 1 bottle of Frank's Red Hot sauce, 75 grams of butter, 3 to 4 tablespoons of light brown sugar, and we're simply going to place all this into one pan and bring it to the boil before simmering for 5 minutes. Again, we want to rest this for a couple of hours to allow the flavours to form. The butter may solidify, however our piping hot wings are going to take care of this. The fries I will race through. This recipe is similar to my triple cut chips, which if I've done this right, you can click on the card above to see now. We're going to prepare the fries. I went for skin on this time. We're going to slice the potatoes lengthways before taking each slice and slicing into a thin, around 1 centimetre wide I suppose, fries. Once the fries are prepared, we are going to rinse these through water to remove any starch. Before boiling for 5 minutes alongside 2 tablespoons of salt and 2 tablespoons of vinegar. I'm not sure where I found this one, but believe me, it does work and it leads to super crunchy fries or even chips with soft, fluffy inside that taste absolutely fantastic. If you don't believe me, try it. After boiling for no longer than 5 minutes, we're going to remove these, drain and steam dry. Very careful that we don't overboil these. They are fries and they will begin to crumb quite quickly. So around 5 minutes. If you've got thin fries, make it a couple of minutes less. Once these are steam dried, we're going to fry at medium heat around 5 minutes until they begin to turn colour. You can usually tell when removing them from the oil, they'll have like a slightly darker skin than what they went in with. After they've been fried, we're going to remove and drain on and these can be left to cool for later. I usually give it around an hour or so. Doesn't matter, you could in theory leave it for around 5 minutes before doing the next step. The next step is simple. We're simply going to again fry them for around 5 minutes at high heat, which is around 180 degrees C. Just shy of 400 Fahrenheit if my maths is correct. I may be slightly wrong there, around 380 maybe. But we fry these until they are golden. And now on to the fun part. We're going to take our soaked wings and we're going to recoat them in corn flour. Around 125 grams of corn flour per 500 grams of wing should do. After these have all been done, we're going to fry at medium heat for around 5 minutes. It is important to not overcook at this stage because when we remove from the first fry, they are going to continue cooking. Now, once they are cooked or pre-cooked, we're going to remove them and place in a tray and leave to cool before our final fry at high heat, which again is around the 180 degrees C mark, around 360 to 380 Fahrenheit. Before removing, draining and drying on a rack. Now if you are cooking these in batches, you may wish to put them in an oven on a very low heat just to keep them warm. I have no idea why the camera's bouncing, but there you are. And now on to the final step. And finally, we coat these wings by tossing them through the buffalo sauce in the pan. You can heat them slightly if you wish. My wings need a little bit more warming up, so that's why the pan was turned back on. We're then going to serve these alongside our fries and blue cheese sauce. And because I don't know how to tell you on this occasion, we're going to top with green spring onions. And there we have it. Delicious, crispy, slightly sweet and spicy buffalo wings with triple cooked fries and a blue cheese sauce. And if you fancy it, a bit of celery on the side. Hello, welcome to another full-length instructional recipe for the Faceless Chef UK. Tonight's recipe is another take on a British classic, the creamiest fish pie you will ever taste. Mixed fish coating in a thick bechamel style sauce with eggs, peas, sweet corn, seasoned with parsley, dill and parmesan, topped with a beautifully smooth fluffy mashed potato, seasoned once more with parmesan. Enjoy the recipe and ensure you carefully watch to the end of the video to ensure you catch all ingredients and instructions. We start by boiling 3 eggs in a pan. These will be brought to a boil and cooked for at least 10 minutes to ensure hard boiled. We then rinse in cold water, deshell and chop roughly before being reserved for later. For our topping, we peel, cube and rinse white potatoes before bringing these to a boil in salted water and cooking until a knife goes through a single cube with ease. These are then steam dried before adding butter and mashing together. You may wish to use a rice to ensure the mash is lump free and beautifully smooth. I was a little short on time, so went straight for the masher instead. For the filling, we melt around 30 grams of unsalted butter in a pan, before gently frying 4 thinly sliced spring onions. Generally, you want 1 tablespoon of flour per 10 grams of butter, so to this we add 3 tablespoons of plain flour. Continuously stirring and cooking the flour out, which is when the smell of the flour is gone from the mixture. We then slowly add milk, continuously whisking to avoid the sauce catching on the base of the pan, and we continue to add small amounts of milk until we get our desired consistency. As the fish we are adding contains quite a lot of liquid, we can allow this sauce to be quite thick to start. We then add 400 grams of mixed fish. A standard frozen supermarket fish pie mix is perfectly fine here. And we stir this through before adding our chopped eggs from earlier, a generous handful of frozen peas and sweet corn, and generous handfuls of chopped dill and parsley. We then stir this whilst cooking on a low heat for around 8 minutes. You may wish to add, like me, 2 tablespoons or so of parmesan into the sauce mixture to give a delicious added flavour. We taste for seasoning, then remove from heat. We place this mixture in a roasting dish before topping with the mash from earlier and sprinkling with more parmesan cheese. We place this in a preheated oven at 200 degrees centigrade for around 30 minutes or until the mash is golden and crisp on top. We are going to put our double O flour on the counter. We can serve this with an accompaniment of choice. For our meal, we chose in there, and we're going to slowly draw the flour in and keep mixing until it forms a workable dough. I'm a bit of a hatch job of it at the start, but here's the dough. You'll know it's when it's nice and smooth and springs to the touch. We can wrap that in film and refrigerate for 2 hours. For the tomato sauce, we're going to gently fry some garlic in a pan. When that's cooked down, we are going to add our tin of chopped tomatoes, followed by red wine vinegar, a tablespoon of caster sugar and a splash of salt. Towards the end of the cooking process, we're going to add 6 to 7 basil leaves. And that's our tomato sauce done. Now on to making the spinach and ricotta filling and the mascarpone topping. So we're going to wilt 125 grams of spinach in some hot water and leave that to sit for about 5 minutes. Whilst that sits, we're going to put a mascarpone into a mixing bowl with pecorino cheese and a splash of milk before mixing that to a smooth paste. We're then going to drain our spinach before squeezing out any excess moisture. I didn't have any cheesecloths left, so I used a kitchen towel. We're going to put that to one side and finely chop it. And then in a mixing bowl, we're going to firstly add our mascarpone cheese. Sorry, not mascarpone, ricotta. There's both our lots of ricotta cheese, and here is our spinach, and we're going to mix this together with a touch of salt for seasoning, again until it forms a smooth, consistent mixture. And there's our filling for our cannelloni. At the very end, I'll add just a touch of grated nutmeg, and again stir that through and leave that to settle for about 30 minutes. Onto the pasta dough. I'll explain this as quick and as simple as I can. I'm going to take my pasta dough ball which has been rested and I quarter it. Take each quarter and I roll it as flat as I can before tri-folding and re-rolling it, and then pass it through a pasta machine on the largest setting around 2 to 3 times before re-rolling it and tri-folding it again, and then passing it through the first setting once more. I then go through each of the numbers all the way up to the final setting, which on mine is number 9, until pasta is nice, thin and stretched. I will then leave that to rest for about 30 minutes. My pasta machine is a little bit wonky, so I do have to sometimes roll it a little bit further on the counter, but as you can see the counter through the pasta. That is a sign of a well rolled pasta dough. So I add a bit of my filling and then roll the pasta dough over the filling to form my first cannelloni tube, and I repeat this process by adding more filling, rolling the pasta over, cutting, and so on. I was able to get maybe 4 to 5 rolls per pasta strip. It is a very time consuming process, but there is a lot to be said for making your own pasta. Personally, I think it tastes fantastic. I think you can tell the difference between shop bought and homemade. However, there is no harm in using shop bought cannelloni tubes. I would recommend, however, a piping bag to allow you to put the cheese and spinach mixture into the cannelloni tubes with ease. Otherwise, you just end up with a big mess. And here we have my cannelloni tubes all ready to be baked with the sauce. And to do that, I'm going to get a roasting tin and I'm going to put my tomato sauce that has been cut and left to rest and cool on the base. I'm then going to line my pan with my cannelloni tubes. And once that's done and nice and firm and compact, I'm going to take my mascarpone and milk and pecorino mixture, sorry, not parmesan, and I'm going to put that on the surface before topping with fresh mozzarella slices. And there we have it. Bit of black pepper on the top, and this is ready to now be roasted in the oven at 200 degrees for around 40 minutes. I did add a further, I would say, generous splash of pecorino on top before cooking. And there we have it. There's my spinach and ricotta cannelloni. It is a little bit time consuming, this recipe. I'd give it maybe a 6 out of 10 in terms of difficulty, but this will serve 4 people and it tastes absolutely fantastic.
Like a good burger,
thumbs up from
enjoy sweet and spicy. Look no further whilst I show you how to make an exceptionally easy Korean fried chicken burger. Enjoy the recipe and ensure you watch to the end of the video to ensure you can take all ingredients and instructions. Start by butterflying breasts of chicken. I used 3. And coat these thoroughly with 400 ml or so of buttermilk. Leave these for at least 2 hours or overnight if you have the time to ensure your chicken breast is moist and tender. For coleslaw, I did go quick and simple. Take a bag of pre-mixed coleslaw ingredients. You can always click the card above to see my own recipe for homemade coleslaw. However, easy and quick was the recipe of the day. add 1 teaspoon of sesame oil, 2 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, a pinch of chili flakes, and 2 to 3 cloves of crushed garlic. Mix this together and leave to rest for at least 2 hours. Sriracha mayo hard? No way! Place 4 tablespoons of mayonnaise with 1 tablespoon of sriracha, stir thoroughly, place in the refrigerator until needed. Boom, done. The Korean hot sauce is just as simple. Take 5 cloves of garlic and mince. Place in a heated pan, ensuring not to burn, and add 3 tablespoons of gochujang or Korean chili paste. I used approximately 200 ml of water, but you can add more or less depending on the thickness you want. Follow this with 1 tablespoon of honey. Again, you can do this by taste. Add more if you like a bit more sweetness with your spice. Simmer this slowly for 5 minutes. It can then be left to cool, but ensure you do warm it through gently before tossing your fried chicken in it. Time to prep our best part of the meal, the chicken. I use a mixture of 100 grams each of potato starch, although you can use corn flour as this is getting ridiculously expensive or rare in the UK, 100 grams of rice flour and 100 grams of plain flour. Give it a good mix and add a little bit of MSG because obviously that's full of flavour. Take each chicken breast, and this is down to you, for a small crunch, coat them with flour mixture, giving every inch a firm squeeze to ensure the coating sticks and covers. If you want a thicker, more crunchy coating, dip back in the buttermilk before again coating in more of the flour mixture. I didn't do this on this occasion, however, to give your coating a few lumps, you may wish to drizzle a tablespoon or so of buttermilk into the flour and mixing around to form little clumps before dipping your chicken in. Again, this does add to the crispiness and texture of a fried chicken. We then preheat a deep fat fryer to 150 degrees C and fry these chicken breasts for approximately 6 minutes or until cut through. Remove these from the fryer and place into that delicious Korean hot sauce we previously made, thoroughly coating the breast. Don't leave it in too long though, you do want a crispy chicken and not a soggy chicken. And now to assemble the burger. Get your toasted bun, add sriracha mayo, lettuce, kimchi, your beautifully crisp Korean chicken burger.
In a bowl, we'll first mix
a
2
cheese
tablespoons
slice,
shoestring wine,
some of that delicious
1 tablespoon sugar, 1 teaspoon salt, 1 tablespoon of white pepper, 1 tablespoon of 5-spice powder. We then give it a good mix to ensure all the ingredients are thoroughly mixed. We can then get 500 grams of our belly pork. Before basting, we're going to pat and dry every inch. Some people prefer to pre-boil this, you may wish to do so, I didn't on this occasion. Just going to ensure every inch is perfectly dry, ready to marinate and ready to baste our skin in a vinegar mixture. We then turn the pork upside down, making inch wide incisions before slicing down the middle lengthwise, being careful not to go through the skin. This allows the belly pork to really soak up the marinade. We can then baste the flesh of the belly pork, taking care not to touch the skin with a shoestring and seasoning mixture, ensuring every inch is coated in all the marinade. We're going to then flip the belly pork skin side up, ensuring that none of the mixture is on the skin. If so, we're quickly going to pat that dry before making it a nice little housing with some tin foil, allowing just the skin to show. Finally, we're going to really want to pierce that skin as much as possible. I don't own a meat tenderizer, so I got a bunch of, skewers to put up the skin. This allows the salt and vinegar to really penetrate, allowing the skin to really crisp up. I go through twice to really ensure I've pierced it as much as physically possible. In a separate dish, we're going to stir 2 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Along with the salt, this will help to draw out moisture and really give our pork a lovely crisp and crunch. We then completely baste the skin with the vinegar and baking soda mixture, again ensuring all is covered. For now, our meat is prepared and we must refrigerate for at least 24 hours to allow that baking soda and vinegar to penetrate and also to let the marinades flavour the flesh. After 24 hours, we rest our belly pork on a roasting tin with rack, and all we're going to simply do at this stage is coat the skin with salt. I used rock salt on this occasion, but I have used table salt in the past. It's really important to ensure that none of the skin is showing at this stage. We then place this in a preheated oven at 200 degrees C or 390 Fahrenheit for at least 2 hours. As you can see, I've just used a bit of table salt to ensure I've fully coated the skin. After 2 hours, we can remove the pork from the oven and very carefully remove the salt crust, taking care not to burn our precious fingers. One tip which I've learned over time is at this stage we can then add, after drying and removing all the salt, 2 tablespoons more of rice wine vinegar, perfect for that final crisp up. We then return the pork back into the oven for 30 to 40 minutes or until the skin is crisp, bubbled and ready to eat. So there you go, making sure not to waste any of that vinegar mixture. And if done correctly, your pork should sound like this. Beautiful. So we're going to remove that from the rack. And this recipe is so good, I just have to taste a sample straight away. Or 2, or 3. However, it is absolutely delicious, served on rice with some sliced lime and what we call a sweetened mustard, which is 2 tablespoons of caster sugar and 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard. And there you go, there is our Chow. And look at that moisture and look at that crispy skin. Absolutely bang on and delicious. Thank you very much for watching. If on Facebook, please feel free to comment, share, save or follow the page.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm the Faceless Chef UK. Today I have a delicious mouth-watering recipe just for you. I'm going to show you the best thing to do with Christmas Day leftovers and turn this into this. A delicious turkey and gammon pie with crispy Parmentier potatoes, which is easily substituted, as it was in this video, with leftover chicken or other white meat from any roast dinner. Perfect any time of the year, not just for Boxing Day. Before I dive into this delicious meal, if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated on all my tasty recipes. And for my returning viewers, welcome back. Your support means the world to me. First, we can start with our Parmentier potatoes. Peeling some white potatoes and chopping into small chunks before boiling for no longer than 5 minutes. A fork should break the surface but not break the chunks of potatoes. Once cooked through, I steam dry these for 5 minutes just to remove any moisture. Place in a roasting dish before tossing generously through with salt, thyme, crushed garlic and a generous splash of olive oil before roasting in a 200 degrees centigrade oven, which is around 400 Fahrenheit, for approximately 30 minutes or until crisp and golden. For the pie, we're going to remove the fat from the leftover gammon. More of this in a bit, followed by finely slicing and dicing into small chunks. The chicken, just rip it off the bone and shred it. We're going to use removed fat from the gammon to line the base of the pan and render that fat down before removing the fat from the pan. Before adding our gammon and chicken and cooking through. Chicken? What's that? Chicken. Once this is warmed through, add double cream, black pepper, and after a while, add some delicious Parmigiano cheese to taste and some peas or vegetables of choice. Place the mixture into a roasting dish, then roll out some puff pastry to around the thickness of a £1 coin and place on top of a roasting dish. Brush with egg wash, top with thyme and further cheese, pierce the lid to allow steam to escape throughout, before placing in the oven again at 200 degrees centigrade for 30 minutes until the pastry is crisp, golden and flaky. This chicken and gammon pie with Parmentier potatoes is absolutely incredible. The flavours are on point and those potatoes are so crisp.
Enjoy the recipe and ensure you carefully watch to the end of the video. We start by creating a panade. This will be mixed with the minced chicken and help to keep the meatballs beautifully moist. We do this by crumbing 3 slices of bread before adding around 6 tablespoons of milk. I perhaps did not add enough milk as this was quite chunky. A true panade is supposed to be almost porridge-like, however, the outcome was still the same. We then, in batches, place our chicken breasts in a blender and pulse until minced. For this recipe, I used around 900 grams of chicken breast. Unlike me, however, you may wish to chop the breast into chunks first, as it becomes a major pain if trying to blitz from full breast. Once both these previous steps are complete, we can mix together in a bowl before thoroughly combining the chicken, panade and seasoning. I'm going to leave this to rest for at least 1 hour in the fridge. We need to ensure that both ingredients are thoroughly mixed so we don't have huge pockets of the panade in amongst the chicken mince. We're going to give that a good stir until it resembles a firm, solid mixture. We can then start the fun part, the assembling of our meatballs. We're going to start first by chopping Stilton into small chunks, like so. Wetting our hands to ensure the meat doesn't stink, we're going to get small pieces of our minced chicken and panade mixture, and we're going to surround cubes of our Stilton with this meat and roll to form a smooth meatball. Once our meatballs are assembled, we can actually leave them to rest for a good 10 minutes to 1 hour in the fridge to ensure they firm up. And now onto the double dip. We get seasoned flour in one bowl, whisked eggs and panko crumbs in another. We're going to take a meatball and coat it in the flour before dipping it into the egg wash and giving it a thorough soaking. And here I'm just lining up a couple more meatballs just to speed up the process. So we try to use a wet hand to dry hand method here. Usually I end up getting confused and end up with both wet and dry hands and very sticky messes everywhere. So once this is thoroughly soaked, we're going to coat it in the panko and with our dry hand firmly pat panko crumbs onto the meatball, and then for that additional crisp we're going to throw it back into the egg wash. Like so. With our wet hand, give another turning and then put it back in with the crumbs, and using our dry hand to apply another coating, giving it a good squeeze to ensure it's thoroughly coated. We leave these to rest for an hour. And now onto the sauces. The buffalo sauce has been done plenty of times before, so you can click on the card that appears above to see this recipe in a previous video. Basically, we're going to use Frank's Red Hot sauce, light brown sugar and butter. We're going to melt it together and then simmer for 5 minutes. Again, we can do this prior to the meal being required. For the sour cream dip, we're going to add 2 to 3 cloves of garlic, depending on how much you love garlic, into a mini chopper or mini blender, or even a full-size blender if you don't have a mini blender. But to this, we're going to add 80 ml or around 80 ml of sour cream, a splash of olive oil, salt and chopped chives before blitzing together to form our sauce. When ready to eat, we're going to take our Kievs or stuffed meatballs, lollipops, whatever you wish to call them, and we're going to fry these at medium heat for around 8 minutes until the cheese inside is melting. At this point the minced chicken will definitely be fully cooked and we're looking for a nice golden colour on our Kievs. We're going to remove these and dry it on a kitchen towel before we roll these through our buffalo sauce. We're then going to serve these with a side of choice. Now, excuse the very poor camera angle here, however, there are fries for sour cream and celery here. Again, I've done a triple cut fries, triple cut chips in the past. I'll provide a link above. If we're creating lollipops, however, of course, we want to make sure that we stick our little cocktail sticks in each of our little stuffed chicken meatballs. And there we have it, a rather delicious and entertaining meal. Buffalo chicken lollipops with a sour cream sauce. Hello. Apologies for the delay, Faceless fans. Career, family and health have meant I had to temporarily take a break. But it's good to be back. Tonight's recipe is a delicious one to come back to, and a good alternative to any Sunday dinner. A tender lamb, goat's cheese and mint pie, served with vegetables and a simple, fluffy rosemary mashed potato. Enjoy the recipe and ensure you carefully watch to the end of the video to ensure all ingredients and instructions are noted. As the lamb can take a while to make tender, we're going to start with that first. This was done on the hob, however, with the recent cost of living crisis in the UK, this is probably better to do in the slow cooker. Similar method, brown the meat, add ingredients, then leave on slow cook for 12 hours rather than pay for the oven. As it is, take 600 grams of a diced leg of lamb, or any cut of lamb for that matter, add a teaspoon of white pepper, approximately 2 tablespoons of plain white flour, a pinch of salt, which is missing from the video, and give it a good mix through in the bowl, leaving to rest whilst prepping the rest of the ingredients. Take 1 medium brown onion, slice, 1 to 2 sprigs of fresh rosemary, and approximately, although this can be done to taste, 2 tablespoons of mint sauce. Any brand is fine. Gently soften the onions before adding your diced lamb and browning it all over. Add your mint sauce, stir through, and add enough beef stock to coat. I did make around 800 ml and use this to top up at later stages to ensure the lamb was super tender without cooking dry. Bring to a boil before turning down the heat to a gentle simmer, cover and slow cook for anywhere between 2 or 3 hours. After the first hour, give a mixture a stir before adding the rosemary, tasting and seasoning if required. Remember though, we are adding goat's cheese, so avoid adding too much salt. After the 2 to 3 hours is up, your mixture should be relatively thick and meat should break apart with the gentlest of presses with a fork. Whilst the lamb is slow cooking, we will blind bake the base of the pie. Saving time, I used a 500 gram block of short crust pastry from the local supermarket, letting it rest for 30 minutes at room temperature before rolling it to around half a centimetre thickness, ensuring it was big enough to fit the baking dish, allowing an overhang, whilst ensuring there was enough left for the pastry lid. We need to allow an overhang as the pastry can shrink whilst baking. I'm still learning how to avoid this happening. It seems to be the luck of the day, but one tip is to not overwork the dough. Lightly grease a baking dish before placing the rolled dough, pressing down to line the dish, and then placing your baking beads, or rice if you do not have any, within the pastry base. Now, mine had to be washed as I had run out of baking paper. Usually, you want to line your pastry with baking paper before covering this paper with your beads. Bake in a preheated oven at 200 degrees centigrade for around 20 to 25 minutes or until the base is turning nice and golden around the crust. Take your pre-cooked pie base and place half a 125 gram block of soft goat cheese around the bottom. Top with your minted lamb and rosemary mixture before adding the remainder of the goat's cheese. Place the pastry lid on top before brushing with egg wash and cutting 2 slits to allow steam to escape during the cooking. Bake in the oven at 200 degrees C again for around 20 minutes until the pastry is nice and golden and crisp. Remove from the oven and use a knife to go along the edge of the baking dish to trim the overhang. For the fluffy mash and veg, start by peeling and cubing potatoes of choice. I used a standard mouse piper before thoroughly washing to remove any starch and finally crushing some rosemary with a pestle and mortar. Boil the potatoes in salted water until the knife goes through the pieces with ease. Drain and steam dry for around 10 minutes. Now again, silly faceless here, ran out of cream and also missed the ricer part. For a smoother mash, push the potato through a ricer or sieve before adding around 50 grams of butter and a generous splash of warm cream. When making mash, try to remember warm cream, cold butter. Mash until you have a smooth consistency, yet still fluffy, which is the reason for we're only going to use a splash of warm cream in this instance. Add and mix thoroughly through your crushed rosemary. Serve a generous slice with your fluffy rosemary mash and vegetables of choice. In this case, I used oven roast carrots with black onion seeds, topped with a simple lamb stock gravy. And there is our finished dish. A truly tender lamb, mint, goat's cheese pie with fluffy rosemary mashed potato. Hello, welcome to another full-length, although shorter than usual, instructional recipe from me, the Faceless Chef UK. Today's recipe is absolutely perfect for Easter Sunday. Perfect for any roast dinner, in fact. Simple to prepare, delicious to eat, the easiest and tastiest roast lamb with rosemary and garlic. Enjoy the recipe, ensure you carefully watch to the end of the video to catch all ingredients and instructions. The first thing we are going to do is dry brine our joint for at least 24 hours. To quote a random search, dry brining uses the food's own moisture to form a brine that then soaks back in. This produces juicy, flavourful results, whilst also helping to achieve a browner and crispier skin. For those that like to brine their meat joints, this also takes up a lot less room than a wet brine. First, we dry the meat. In our case, this is a leg of lamb, which is about 2 kilos in size. We dry the meat using kitchen towel before coating and rolling the joint in kosher salt, or rock salt if you don't have kosher salt to hand. To note, when dry brining, it is best to use half a teaspoon of salt per pound or so of meat, or 450 grams. Place this on a rack and refrigerate for at least 24 hours. After 24 hours, the meat should be brined. If you decide to remove this earlier, make sure the skin is dry. If it's still wet, this indicates the meat is yet to soak back in the juices that the salt has pulled out, and therefore will not be ready to roast. The skin should feel tight and dry to the touch. Wipe the leg of lamb down to remove excess salt and ensure to rinse the pan ready for roasting. For the herbs, we take 1 bulb of garlic and remove the skins from each clove and little snippets of rosemary, stem included. We take a knife and make holes evenly around the lamb joint, spacing them across the whole joint where possible. Inserting the cloves can be cumbersome, so to aid this, when inserting the knife, give it a little twist to create a hole large enough to push each clove easily into. When ready, insert 1 clove plus 1 small sprig of rosemary into each of the crevices. Whilst doing this, preheat your oven to 190 degrees centigrade. Place the lamb in the oven and roast for anywhere between 15 minutes per pound and 30 minutes per pound,
1 pound is approximately 450 grams. I prefer the meat medium rare, which is around 20 minutes per pound. Now, as this meat will be rested for at least 10 minutes before carving, it's important to remove the roast from the oven around 5 degrees less than the required temperature. In my case, this was at 55 degrees centigrade to bring it up to an internal temperature of around 60 degrees. To check the temperature, insert a thermometer into the thickest part of the meat, but not the part with the bone, before resting. When cooked, remove from the oven and as stated rest for around 10 minutes before carving. And there you have it, the easiest, tastiest roast lamb with rosemary and garlic. Perfect for any Sunday roast dinner, even more so for Easter Sunday. Any leftovers? Feel free to use the day after. We like to make our version of stovies, using leftover meat, leftover roasties and baked beans. Click on the card above to see this recipe. Thank you very much for watching. If on Facebook, please feel free to comment, share, save or follow the page. Remember, my videos do appear first on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe over there. If you are on YouTube, please leave a comment, hit the subscribe button and join us on our journey to 1,000 subscribers and beyond. Also, make sure to click the notification button to see more weekly videos from myself. Stay healthy and see you next episode. Bye bye. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to soak our new potatoes in salted water, and then we're going to bring them to a boil on the stove until they are soft enough for a knife. Whilst the potatoes are cooking, we're going to prep our asparagus, which we're going to just trim slightly before squeezing a lemon over it, adding olive oil and salt water. I'm going to cook that for around 30 minutes at gas mark 6. Once our potatoes are cooked, we're going to crush them using a small Tupperware dish before adding our 60 grams of melted butter and our 4 cloves of chopped garlic. Once that's in, we're going to gently toss them through so that each and every potato is covered nicely in the melted butter and garlic. We're then going to add a few sprigs of thyme just to add a little more flavour. That then gets put in the oven again at gas max 6 or 200 degrees C for 30 minutes. Whilst they're cooking, we're going to check that our Seabass fillets have no bones in them. Unfortunately, I had no tweezers, so I had to manually do this, but it's very important because these bones are quite sharp and tough, so it's important to check for any bones. We're then going to add them skin side down to a griddle pan which has just about a tablespoon of oil in. We're going to wait till the flesh is white halfway up before flipping and turning over and cooking the remaining half. These were thin fillets, so it took approximately 2 to 4 minutes to cook through. Once they're cooked, we're going to remove from the pan, but we're going to keep the juice in the pan and we're going to add another 60 grams of butter to the pan. Once that's melted, being careful not to burn the butter, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of capers into the mixture, and although it isn't in the video, another squeeze from a full lemon. And then we'll cook that through for a couple of minutes till all the flavours are merged. And then it's time to plate up. So we have our roasted asparagus, our crushed garlic potatoes, and our lovely perfectly cooked sea bass fillets, which we then coat in our beautiful decadent lemon caper butter sauce.
Want a delicious tasting creamy mushroomy pasta dish? Then look no further, tune right in and follow the recipe till the end. Have fun.
Tonight's recipe is a quick, ready in 10 minutes pasta dish, and one of the best things I like to do with penne pasta, particularly on a weeknight when the whole family is busy. Penne pasta with chestnut mushrooms, crispy bacon, leeks and Dolcelatte. Enjoy the recipe and ensure you carefully watch to the end of the video to ensure you catch all ingredients and instructions. We start by placing penne pasta into a deep filled pot of salted boiling water. Whilst the penne is cooking, we can start to prepare our ingredients. Firstly, we thinly slice 250 grams of chestnut mushrooms, followed by cutting into small pieces 1 300 gram pack of unsmoked back bacon, then around 100 grams of sliced leeks. As I was not going to make use of a large whole leek this week, I went for the lazier pre-sliced rather than wasting half a leek before cooking. The ingredients would suit 3 to 4 people. The first cook was from Mrs Faceless and Little Mini Faceless, so I took around half of each prepared ingredient, although the pasta was measured by eye. After this, check the penne is al dente, remove from the water, but do not waste this lovely starchy water, we will need this for later. We leave the pasta to steam gently over the water to keep it moist and warm. We start by frying our bacon. Now, a little tip here, if you'd like that lovely crispy texture and appearance, add a good splash of water and cover. Allow the bacon to cook until your desired crispness. Some may prefer a softer texture for the dish, but I find it adds another texture to keep it as crisp as possible. We remove this from the pan, then we add our sliced mushrooms. We are going to dry fry the mushrooms, which allows them to naturally release their own juices and add a deeper flavour, before adding our sliced leeks and gently cooking these down. We then return our crisp bacon to the pan. Give it a good mix through before adding a generous ladle and a half of the pasta water and cook this down while stirring to allow this mixture to emulsify. We then return the pasta to the pan and thoroughly mix this in before adding around 80 grams of Dolcelatte, stirring through and then leaving to temper for around 5 minutes. And serve. A hearty, filling 10-minute dish. Feel free to substitute with different ingredients, for example the addition of garlic, or swapping bacon for guanciale, lardons or prosciutto. A delicious bowl of penne pasta with chestnut mushrooms, bacon, leeks and Dolcelatte, topped with some grated parmesan. Delicious. Hello, welcome to another full-length instructional recipe for the Faceless Chef UK. Today's recipe is a rich, creamy Moorish Camembert parcel with an orange and cranberry sauce, a stick-to-your-ribs crowd pleaser, one that is definitely for the cheese lovers. Enjoy the recipe and ensure you carefully watch to the end of the video to see all ingredients and hear all instructions. We start by making the cranberry and orange sauce. This can be made well ahead of time and stored in an airtight container or mason jar, which will last upwards of 2 weeks. We place around 500 grams of cranberries in a pan. I used frozen on this occasion, alongside the juice and zest of 2 whole oranges. Adding to this 3 tablespoons of caster sugar. Now the important part, once this is cut, is to decide whether you would like it a little sweeter. If so, add caster sugar another tablespoon at a time. I quite like the bitterness of cranberry sauce and therefore do not want it over sweet. We simmer this in a pan for around 10 minutes or until the cranberries start to burst. We can then let this cool before placing it in the mason jar and placing it in the refrigerator. To make the parcels, we take a whole camembert wheel weighing around 250 grams and carefully slice the top rind, ensuring we do not take too much of the cheese with it. After doing this, we'll whisk 3 eggs in a bowl, before taking half a 500 gram block of puff pastry. On this occasion I do suggest pre-made, it's just as good as making your own, and we roll this out on a floured surface. It needs to be around the thickness of a 1 pound piece, enough to encase the camembert. Gently placing the wheel just short off centre, we then top our cheese with some of the cranberry sauce before adding some fresh thyme. Additionally, you may wish to add a drizzle of honey, or for a little kick to cut through the richness of a dish, some diced chilli. We then fold the pastry over the cheese, fully encasing the cheese and the sauce. We crimp our edges together to ensure it is fully sealed. We then brush this with egg wash mixture, put a couple of slices on the surface of the pastry to allow heat to escape during the cooking process, and sprinkle a little more additional thyme. We then place this in a preheated 200°C oven for around 20 minutes until the pastry has risen and is a nice golden brown.
This is an absolutely delicious recipe, but with a warning. It is extremely rich. You may wish to have something savoury on the side, or something with a nice spicy kick. I like to use a sauce from a Daddy Cool's chili sauce range with this. The link will be underneath in the description, or some paprika wedges.
Welcome back to the Faceless Chef UK, where I create exciting and delicious recipes that will tantalise your taste buds. A humble favourite of mine, today we're going to show you how to make the ultimate double smash burger. A double smash burger with brie, bacon, sriracha mayo, rocket, and we're going to start by caramelising some onions to make a delicious chutney that will add a sweet and tangy flavour to our burgers. This takes the most time, so we start by slicing a medium red and white onion, and finally chopping 3 cloves of garlic before gently, and I mean gently, cooking these over the hob in a little olive oil. After about 40 minutes, the onions will have a nice brown colour to them, but not charred. At this stage, we can add around 80 ml of red wine vinegar. For the eagle-eyed will notice I've used white wine vinegar. This is a good substitute if, like me, you've run out of red wine vinegar. We then add a generous 2 to 3 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, 50 to 80 grams of dark brown sugar, and depending on taste, 1 tablespoon of paprika. Again, cooking this down until a beautiful caramel has formed. To check, drag your spoon across the surface of the pan. If the syrup takes a few seconds to reform and recover, then it's perfect. If it recovers the surface quickly, give it another 2 minutes. You can store this in mason jars, and this will keep for months. However, it doesn't last long in my household, so I just place this in a standard jar. While our onions are cooking, we're going to oven cook some bacon until it's crispy and delicious. This is all by choice. Some folks prefer to fry. Me, I like the oven method. Again, do it to your own desired crispness. As I have 2 tiny, 1 extremely tiny mouth to feed, I don't overdo this. So, now we toast our brioche buns in a pan with melted butter till a nice crust has formed. We are then going to smash our 125 gram beef patties on a flaming hot pan. Just get a ball of mince and push it right down. Personally, I use a tortilla press, but you can use whatever method suits. We're going to place these on a flaming hot pan to get that beautiful brown caramelised crust. Once it's caramelised on one side, flip, season, do the same again. Once they're cooked to perfection, we are going to add some brie cheese on top, which give our burgers that creamy texture we all love. Add a splash of water, cover, and remove from the hob to allow the burgers and cheese to steam a little. It's all about adding flavour at this stage. Whilst our burgers are cooking, we're going to whip up some sriracha mayo, which gives our burgers that spicy kick we all crave, and a beautiful addition to offset the sweetness of the chutney and the creaminess of that delicious melted brie. To do this, place 6 tablespoons of mayonnaise in a bowl and add 2 to 3 tablespoons of sriracha and give it a good mix. And now for the best part, we're going to assemble our burger. We're going to start with a layer of rocket on a sriracha mayo covered base, which adds a delicious pepperiness to complement the other flavours, followed by a couple of rashers of that delicious smoky streaky bacon, our brie topped beef patties, finally a generous spoonful of our homemade onion chutney. Top it off with the remainder of the bun and a splash more sriracha mayo. And there you have it, the ultimate double smash burger with brie, bacon, sriracha mayonnaise, rocket and a sweet caramelised onion chutney. It's a burger that's bursting with flavour and
Hello, welcome to another full-length instructional recipe for the Faceless Chef UK. Tonight's recipe is a weekend favourite and a take on the USA classic, ribs and wings. Slow cooked 6-hour barbecue ribs coated in a smoky barbecue sauce and served with fiery buffalo chicken wings and a blue cheese sauce. Perfect for those game nights, those nights you fancy a beer and food. The easiest slow cooked barbecue ribs and buffalo wings. Enjoy the recipe and ensure you carefully watch to the end of the video to ensure you catch all ingredients and instructions. We start by taking our ribs. Now my ribs weren't the best cut, but generally speaking you do want to remove the white membrane. This allows the meat to fall off the bone. However, mine was a little awkward due to the cut, so I chose to leave this on. I basted the ribs with Dijon mustard before coating in paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, salt and olive oil, around 1 tablespoon of each. Thoroughly spread this all over the ribs before covering and refrigerating for at least 24 hours. The next day, we preheat an oven to around 125 degrees centigrade before covering the ribs and placing in an oven for around 6 hours. On the stove top, we place around 120 ml of ketchup, 3 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of liquid smoke, around 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, a splash of soy sauce, and a splash of Dorsetshire sauce or Worcestershire sauce, followed by 60 ml of honey and some salt. We bring this to a boil and simmer for around 5 minutes before removing from heat and placing in a bowl until later needed. At around hour 5, we coat our ribs in the barbecue sauce before returning to the oven for the final hour, turning twice to ensure the ribs are fully coated not only in the juices from the meat, but the delicious barbecue sauce. For the wings, we trim and cut our wings into a wingette and drumette before adding 4 to 5 tablespoons of corn flour and 2 eggs and salt. We mix these thoroughly together before refrigerating for around 2 hours. When we're ready to initially fry, we place equal measures of potato starch or corn flour and rice flour in a bowl. I went for around 100 grams of each. We take each wing and thoroughly coat, squeezing the flour mixture to ensure all the wing is coated. We then preheat a deep fat fryer to around 125°C. We gently fry these initially for around 3 to 5 minutes before removing and draining on a wire rack. Unfortunately, I did lose the second part of this video, but these can be left to cool until later, whereby we preheat the fryer again to around 160 to 180 this time, and cook for a further 3 to 5 minutes, ensuring our wings are beautifully crispy. For the blue cheese sauce, we place 2 cloves of garlic, 300 ml of sour cream, 120 ml of mayo, 3 tablespoons of milk, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and blue cheese, Stilton in my case, in a blender. We pulse before blending at high speed, then place the resulting mix in a bowl and refrigerate for 2 hours to allow the flavours to blossom. The buffalo sauce is easy. We take 1 bottle of Frank's Red Hot sauce, 3 tablespoons of light brown sugar, 30 grams of butter, and we bring this to a boil before simmering gently for 5 minutes. This can be reserved for later. To serve, we place our ribs as they are. We coat the wings in a deliciously spicy buffalo sauce and serve with our delicious blue cheese sauce. A perfect feast for game night or a weekend meal. Hello, welcome to another full-length instructional recipe from me, the Faceless Chef UK. Today's recipe is sure to be popular with the fast food lovers. I give you the better than McDonald's Filet of Fish burger. A crispy breadcrumb coated cod fillet served in a brioche bun with American cheese and chunky tartar sauce. Of course, it's also served with triple cooked skin on fries. Enjoy the recipe and watch all the way to the end of the video to ensure you catch all ingredients and instructions. Firstly, as we're doing skin on fries, there is no need to peel, but we will slice our potatoes before taking each slice and cutting fries of about 1 centimetre thickness. Before placing these fries in a big deep pan and washing to remove the starch from the potatoes. This allows the fries to be crisp on the outside whilst remaining fluffy, not gluey, on the inside. We thoroughly wash these until the water becomes clear. Then we add a generous 2 to 3 tablespoons of vinegar and the same with table salt. These then get covered before being placed onto boil for no longer than 5 minutes. Any longer and your fries are in danger of breaking apart as they will be too soft. Once boiled, drain the pan and leave the fries to steam dry for a couple of minutes before frying at medium heat, approximately 150 degrees C,
for 3 to 5 minutes or until the surface of a potato just begins to turn colour. They should have a nice crisp shake to them if cooked correctly. If they have started to brown, you may have cooked them too long. Remove these and dry on a kitchen towel. Now there are several methods out there for folks to follow, however you have a choice. You can freeze and then refry at high heat at another time. Alternatively, leave them to cool and recook just as the burgers are about to be ready at 180 degrees C for around 3 to 5 minutes. To make the chunky tartar sauce, I went for a quick and easy version. You can place dill in the recipe, however I did run out of dill and it tasted perfectly fine without. Add to a mini blender 2 tablespoons of capers, 2 small gherkins, around 80 to 100 millilitres of mayonnaise, a splash of lemon juice and a splash of Dorsetshire sauce. Worcestershire sauce is perfectly fine. And also some seasoning. As mentioned, if you have dill, throw that in there too. Pulse gently for a chunkier tartar sauce or at high speed for a smoother, thinner version. The fish is extremely simple. We will create our dredging batter. Seasoned flour in one bowl, breadcrumbs in another. The breadcrumbs have been prepared using a slightly stale tiger bread. If you have slightly stale bread, this is fantastic for breadcrumbs as it will add a better crisp. In a third bowl, we will place 2 eggs and whisk these until all the contents will fall from a fork with ease. We take our cod fillets and dry these with kitchen towel before thoroughly coating in the seasoned flour. This will allow the egg wash to stick better to the fish. Place the fillet that's now coated in flour in the egg wash and leave for around 30 seconds each side to allow the mixture to stick to the flour, before then placing the cod fillet in the breadcrumbs, coating and giving a firm squeeze to cram as many breadcrumbs onto the surface of the fish as possible. I chose to single coat on this occasion, however, for an extra crispy burger, feel free to use either panko breadcrumbs or double dip, i.e. placing the breaded fish back in the egg wash, soaking, then recoating once more with the breadcrumbs. When ready to cook, take your brioche rolls and gently brown or toast these. Fill a frying pan to just under halfway with cooking oil and heat until a skewer bubbles on the surface. Your oil is hot enough to fry. Turn the heat down to medium and place your breaded fish in, being careful to avoid splashing hot oil. You may wonder why I have a little piece of breaded fish. This is purely for our wee 10-month-old. He is now able to eat soft finger foods, so myself and Mrs. Faceless like to give him tastes of our teas. Fortunately, everything we give him so far, he loves. We cook the fish for around 3 minutes either side, depending on thickness, then remove and place on a kitchen towel for around 2 minutes to remove excess oil. If your fish fillets are quite thick, you may wish to keep the heat quite low to ensure the surface doesn't cook too fast and end up burning your breadcrumbs. Take your toasted brioche bun, place mayonnaise on the base, followed by a generous serving of chopped iceberg lettuce or any crunchy lettuce of choice. Place a large, generous dollop of a chunky tartar sauce on the top half of the bun. Then assemble your burger. Base, fish, American cheese slice, then top your bun. Give it a gentle squeeze to ensure the sections stay together and place a serving of our triple cooked skin on fries on the side. Delicious, a perfect Friday night or fake away treat. The better than McDonald's Filet of Fish burger. Hello. Welcome to another full-length instructional recipe for the Faceless Chef UK, an episode tailor-made for those trying to manage their money and avoiding takeaways. In the UK, there is nothing better than a chippy tea on a Friday, and what is more traditional than fish and chips. This recipe tweaks it slightly to produce a delicious fake-away meal suitable for any evening dinner, let alone a Friday. The best fish and chips you will ever make.
we have a shallow fried turmeric battered cod fillet with triple cooked chips, crushed peas, more on that later, and a tartar sauce, served with bread and butter and fresh lemon. Absolutely delicious. Enjoy the recipe and ensure you carefully watch to the end of the video to see all instructions and ingredients. First for chips. We peel, chip and wash before soaking white potatoes. This can be done the night before, ahead of time. If soaking overnight, I was always taught to leave a slice of bread in the water to help remove the starch and avoid the potatoes from browning. Adding 2 tablespoons each of salt and vinegar, we turn these on to boil for no longer than 5 minutes. We drain, remove and steam dry. For the first fry, we place in a deep fryer at about 150 degrees centigrade and fry until the skin just starts to turn colour. A shake in the basket will tell you whether they are done. You should hear a dry shuffle. These are then dried on kitchen towel or over a rack in a baking tray. These can be cooled or even frozen until needed later. When ready for serving, we place these back in a fryer, this time at around 180 degrees, and fry until golden and crisp. For the tartar sauce, we simply place in a mini chopper or blender 3 tablespoons of capers, 1 medium-sized gherkin that's been chopped, 1 tablespoon of dill, half of a lemon squeezed, and unlike Nunta here, some chopped shallot. I'd unfortunately run out. Before adding 60 or so millilitres of mayonnaise and blitzing all this together. The mayonnaise I used in this recipe is quite a thin one, so if using a thin mayonnaise, use a little less to ensure the tartar sauce is slightly thick rather than runny. For the fish, we place 75 grams of plain flour in a bowl, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, not soda, a generous pinch of salt and turmeric, and around 100 ml of soda water or beer. If you like to have a thinner batter, add dashes of soda water or beer until you get a consistency of your choosing. We take our cod fillets, we dry before placing in a bowl of flour and coating thoroughly, then placing in our batter mixture, ensuring every inch of a fillet is sufficiently coated. We take a frying pan and around 1.5 cm depth of oil and heat this until a skewer starts to bubble when placed in the oil. This is now hot enough and we gently place our fillets into the oil, cooking for 2 to 3 minutes either side. Thicker fillets may need 3 to 5 minutes instead. The peas are really simple. We add frozen peas to a pan before boiling for no longer than 5 minutes. We strain the peas and steam dry them before adding a generous 2 tablespoons or so of butter and cream and mash together along with some seasoning. Now the reason I have called these crushed and not mushy is true mushy peas tend to use a combination of marrow fat peas and baking soda, a combination I'm not particularly keen on. Place everything on a plate alongside a serving of bread and butter, fresh lemon wedges and a generous serving of our homemade tartar sauce. Delicious. The best fish and chips you will ever make at home. Thank you very much for watching. Hello, welcome to another full-length instructional recipe for the Faceless Chef UK. In this evening's episode, I take an older video and show you an extremely simple one-pot recipe that, given the time to cook, tastes absolutely stunning. The easiest lamb ragu you will ever make or need. This recipe is fantastic with fresh pasta, so click above for a link to that recipe, or with lasagna. Enjoy the recipe and show you carefully watch to the end of the video to ensure you get all ingredients and all instructions. For the recipe, you're going to need 500 grams of lamb mince, 100 ml of passata sauce, 400 grams of chopped tomatoes, 1 white onion chopped, 2 carrots diced, 2 celery diced, 3 to 4 bay leaves, 2 to 3 sprigs of rosemary, 200 ml of beef stock, 4 cloves of chopped garlic, and 1 small 125 ml bottle of red wine. We start by gently frying the onions, celery, carrots and garlic until softened. When softened, we add our lamb mince and gently brown.
The mince I used was low in fat, however, if you have a lot of oil in the pan at this stage, you do need to drain the mixture of excess oil. We add our bottle of red wine and bring this to a boil before turning the heat down to a simmer and reducing the alcohol content. You know this is ready when the smell of alcohol has disappeared and there remains little to no liquid left. We then add all our remaining ingredients: the passata, the chopped tomatoes, the beef stock, the bay leaves, the rosemary, any seasoning, and we cover the pot and we slowly simmer this for at least 2 hours, or 6 if you have the time. The longer you slow cook this for, the stronger and more delicious the flavour. As stated, this does go fantastic with fresh pasta and a grating of fresh parmesan, as demonstrated in the image. And here we've got some squid rounds that we are going to soak in buttermilk. The reason we do this is A, to help the flour stick to the squid, and also to help tenderise the squid and make it much more succulent when cooked, assuming you don't overcook it. So once we've marinated it, we're going to cover it in shrink wrap or cling film and refrigerate for 1 to 2 hours. We're then going to get a 50-50 split, really, of plain flour and corn flour or cornstarch, and season it. It's just personal choice that you might just use simple flour. I like to do corn flour and flour itself because that leads to quite a crispy crust. So we're going to take each squid ring in turn and we're going to gently coat it in the flour mixture. You could, if you wanted to, double coat it like you would maybe onion rings. However, I do feel that with calamari it's such a light flavour, I suppose, that to double coat it might overpower the squid. So we're going to now do that for the rest of the squid pieces. Going to coat them in flour and leave them to rest for about 10 to 20 minutes whilst we preheat the pan. So there we go. So here we have our squid prepared, and the secret to cooking it is either slow and low or high and fast, as I said in last week's prep episode. I chose to do it at a temperature of 350 Fahrenheit or 175-ish degrees Celsius, and remove that and then drain the excess fat before serving them with a lovely mayonnaise. Start by prepping around 340 grams of beef medallion steaks, thinly slicing before mixing with a mixture of baking soda and soy sauces. Give it a thorough mix and leave it to rest for at least 2 hours. Add your beef to a smoking hot wok and brown through before adding approximately 4 cloves of chopped garlic, some ginger, 2 tablespoons of dark soy sauce and water, and bring that to a boil. Add a cornflour slurry to thicken the mixture before adding some spring onion greens and mixing through. And now the dish is ready to serve with any accompaniment of choice. Absolutely delicious, sweet, sticky and moorish. Hello, welcome to another full-length instructional recipe for the Faceless Chef UK. In today's episode I'm going to show you how to make a delicious, sweet, sticky beef chow fun with homemade rice noodles. This was the first attempt at homemade beef chow fun and rice noodles, and although the noodles took some practice, I quickly learned that covering during the cooking process is key to ensure the rice noodles can be removed and sliced. We start by preparing the beef with a wet marinade for velveting. There is a card up above which will show you how to dry velvet should you wish. To do this, we thinly slice beef of choice, in my case 340 grams of beef medallions. Beef skirt is usually recommended, however, but this is difficult to get a hold of where I live. Once the beef is thinly sliced, we're going to coat it in 1 teaspoon of baking soda. To that mix, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of dark soy sauce and around 2 tablespoons of Shaoxing. We then give this a good mix, ensuring the beef is thoroughly coated before leaving it to rest for around 2 hours. This ensures the beef is succulent and tender when being cooked and eaten. We then get hold of a mixing bowl. With the rice noodles, we're going to add
around 1¼ cups of rice flour, followed by 1¼ cups of water, pinch of salt, followed by 2 tablespoons of tapioca starch. It has been suggested that you could use cornstarch if you're unable to get hold of tapioca starch. We're then going to give it a good whisk through before straining through a sieve back into another mixing bowl. We then finally add 1 teaspoon of oil onto the surface of the mixture and we leave this to rest. Before using, we're going to ensure that we give this mixture a good whisk because the rice flour does settle at the bottom of the bowl. The cooking method I used, I did modify slightly from what I'd read. I used 2 oiled 9-inch cake tins and placed 1/3 to 1/4 of a cup of the rice noodle mixture in each. Therefore, one can be cooking whilst the other is being removed and sliced. Bringing a pan of water to the boil, we place one of our tins on the surface of the water. Because I have a poor choice in pans and a small wok, I had to make sure that this was carefully balanced so the mixture did not slide and allowed it to cook evenly. However, this did take 3 or 4 attempts before I learned that covering the pan during the cooking process leads to a much firmer and moist noodle and therefore stops the rice noodle sheet from cracking and drying out throughout the cooking process. Once it's cooked, we can lay it on a oiled surface before lightly brushing more oil on the top of the noodle. This allows us to avoid the noodles sticking together when we contain them for later use. So we take our noodle sheet and we are going to thinly slice it into around 2 centimetre wide pieces or strips. We can then place our noodles in a container where these should be good for at least 24 hours to 2 days. However, I left mine to rest for around 2 hours. When cooking, they really do need just a quick warm through. For the final part of the recipe, we're going to heat a wok till smoking and add 2 tablespoons of oil before adding our velveted beef and browning that quickly in the pan and then removing. Once the meat is browned, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of oil to the wok before frying a thumb-sized piece of ginger that has been peeled and sliced. I like to add a bit of water at this point to help deglaze the pan. Once that ginger cooks through, we'll our browned beef back into the mixture. And once that's heated through, we're going to take the greens of 5 spring onions and slice them into 1-inch strips. In this case, because I was making it for 2, only around 2 to 3 went in at this stage. I do have a small wok. So we'll heat that through, gently tossing through the pan before adding 2 tablespoons of Chow wine, 2 tablespoons of dark soy sauce and 2 tablespoons of light soy sauce. Again, we stir this through, keeping the ingredients on a medium heat and gently tossing through in the pan before adding MSG, sugar and white pepper. When that's cooked, we add around 50 grams of bean sprouts. Now these take very limited time to cook, so we're going to do this is literally the last couple of minutes of the dish. Once our bean sprouts are added and cooked through, we can then finally add our rice noodles to the mix. At this point, we're going to roll the mixture or gently toss the mixture through the wok, as overworking this can break the rice noodles, so we need to take this final step very carefully. Finally, we throw in some spring onion greens to add a little bit more colour and texture to the dish. Before, as an optional step, if you like a slightly sweeter dish, we can add 1 tablespoon more of Kesap Mani. Minnie Faceless loves the stuff, so whenever we have Chinese, it's always got to be added either within the dish or on the side for her to dip food into. The dish is now ready to serve. And there you have it. Beef chow fun. A heartwarming dish, perfect for these cold winter months. Very easy this recipe today. We're going to add our double cream to the mason jar. It should be about half full, or so you don't want to overfill the mason jar. We're then going to close the lid, and from there becomes, well, quite a painful job for me, but a job of shaking it vigorously until the fat separates from the liquid. So here goes my half teaspoon of salt. You could add other ingredients at this stage, and here we begin to shake our mason jar. After a while, it'll start to thicken up. You'll have to excuse the camera there. It starts to thicken up, looking a bit like whipped cream, or a very thin whipped cream. And there you go, just to show you the consistency. So we'll place our lid back on, and we're going to shake it for a few more minutes. Eventually what will happen is the liquids will separate from the fats, and what you will have is buttermilk and forming of butter. And here we go, just again showing you how it should look at different stages throughout the process. Back to shaking we go, and eventually it starts to look like this, which is a bit more like a curdled cream. At this stage my hands were really hurting, but it does take between 5 and 10 minutes. You might need to stretch your arms here and there, but it's important not to stop. And there we go, the process is now almost complete. The fat is beginning to separate. So what will happen is you'll actually start feeling like a solid lump sloshing about in liquid, and at that point you know that it is completed. So there you go. I mean, I don't know why I'm filming at that angle, however you can see the butter now starting to form. So a few more shakes, and then we should be done. There you go. So we've got just one last final shake. Time has been sped up a little bit, and there we go. There's our lovely butter. At this stage I have no idea why we're still shaking. However, here we go. We pour the butter through a sieve so that we get our buttermilk. Now that buttermilk can be used for pancakes. I drain the buttermilk from a bowl. Now what we're going to do, we are going to use a glass of water to clean any remaining buttermilk that remains on the butter. A cheesecloth should be used at this stage, however I don't actually have one, or I didn't, but passing water through a sieve should work. So we repeat this process 2 to 3 times to make sure that our butter is clean of any buttermilk, and the reason we do this is that way our butter will keep fresh in the fridge for around 7 to 10 days, perhaps 14 if you are lucky. And there we have it, there's our salted butter. So now we're going to place this butter in a small pot. I assure you my hands were very clean at this stage, so I'm going to roll butter into a bowl, making sure I squeeze any remaining buttermilk and water out. And then, well, we start by placing in a roasted tin 3 peppers, cored and quartered, 1 red onion, peeled and quartered, 1 whole butternut squash, de-seeded, peeled and chopped into even chunks, 2 small bulbs of garlic with the tops removed, skins can remain on, a generous pinch of salt and 1 tablespoon of olive oil. We shake all this together before placing in a preheated oven at 200 degrees centigrade for 30 to 40 minutes, or until the vegetables are soft and cooked and emitting a delicious aroma like so. Once the vegetables are cooked, there are 2 options. Do as I did and just place it all in a pan, ensuring to squeeze the garlic out of their skins being careful to not burn your fingers. Or, if some people do not like the charred skins, you may wish to remove from the peppers first before adding to the pan. Personally, I see no difference, or not much, and the charring was slight. The bitterness helped to lessen the sweetness of this dish. Add to this pot 3 vegetable stock cubes and enough hot water to just cover the vegetable mixture. We season this with white pepper before covering and simmering for around 20 minutes. When cooked, we simply add the mixture to a blender and pulse before blending at high speed. We then remove this mixture and strain through a sieve back into the cooking pot to ensure a smooth consistency. At this stage, the mixture should be thick enough, but you can either add more water if you prefer a thinner consistency. Alternatively, if you have too thin a mixture, you can use a corn flour slurry, which is 2 tablespoons of corn flour to 2 tablespoons of water mixed to help thicken the mixture. The tastiest roasted pepper and butternut squash soup is now complete. Pour this into a serving dish before topping with a dash of double cream, plenty of finely grated parmesan, and a generous amount of cracked black pepper. Serve with anything of choice: bread, croutons, cheese bombs, even chips. Hello, in today's episode I am going to show you how to make steamed fish with ginger, spring onion and soy sauce. A delicate dish which is sure to impress, extremely easy to prepare, more so to cook. Have a watch, spot the ingredients and give it a go. You can use any white fish you want. In this case I used hake, but the dish also works well with cod. So we're going to start by peeling the back of a spoon and slicing ginger. It's a relatively easy process using a spoon, and it also is less wastage. You'll find that the skin and the roots of each piece comes off very easily. We then take each slice and cut it into smaller matchsticks. I usually do this by eye and taste. Mrs. Faceless loves ginger, so I love to whack a generous amount on each fish fillet. After this, we take 3 to 4 spring onion greens, we trim, clean and shred. I use a shredder tool. It's very cheap and easy to pick up on Amazon. I think I paid maybe £2 for this. So after our spring onions have been shredded, we're then going to take a mix of 1 to 1.25 dry rice to water, which has been already thoroughly soaked and rinsed over a period of 2 hours or so. Season and place it on to boil. In a deep fill dish, we'll gently place our fillets, which have been dried, before placing 5 to 6 tablespoons of soy sauce at the base. Standard soy sauce and not dark soy sauce is used here. We're then going to line our ginger matchsticks on top of each fillet. This is now ready to steam. For final ingredients, we're simply going to gather 2 tablespoons of sesame oil and vegetable oil. This is going to be used for the final topping to our dish when everything else has been cooked. We check on our rice and allow it to slowly simmer. When the water is just about to evaporate completely, we're going to place the lid on the pan and remove this from the heat to steam for anywhere between 10 to 30 minutes, depending on the time that we have. Remembering when this has been completed to gently fork the rice to produce the fluffiness. Bringing a pan of water to boil, we're going to top this with a bamboo steamer and then place the dish with the fish inside of a steamer. Place the lid back on, and the fillets will need to steam between 5 to 10 minutes depending on the thickness of each fillet. Whilst those are being cooked, we're going to gently heat our sesame oil and vegetable oil in a pan, being sure to not overheat the oil, as this will be the finishing touch to our dish. Whilst the oil is warming through, we can check on our fillets. You're going to know they're ready when a knife goes through the thickest part with ease. I tend to do this by eye these days, as I've done this dish a few times now. So we're going to take our rice that has been steamed, we're going to place this in a bowl, and we're going to top this with our white fish fillets. And then when that's done, we're going to pour our soy sauce, which has also been steaming the bottom of the dish and has actually gathered all those wonderful flavours from the ginger and fish, and we're going to pour that around the rice and around the fish, allowing that rice to soak up all those wonderful juices. We're then going to top each fillet with our shredded spring onion greens. After this, we're going to gently pour the hot oil mixture over these onions. You know it's perfect if you hear that wonderful sizzle as you pour the oil on top. And there you have it, a simple, relatively healthy steamed fish with ginger, spring onion and soy sauce.
The first thing we are going to need is our donut dough. Place 240 ml of semi-skimmed milk in a measuring jug and heat this for around 40 seconds before placing 1 tablespoon of dried active yeast over the top and 1 teaspoon of caster sugar before giving it a good, quick mix. The sugar acts like a food for yeast, allowing the yeast to proof slightly quicker and increase the activity of the yeast. Leave this for around 10 minutes or until bubbles or foam begin to form on the surface of a warm mixture. Taking 500 grams of plain flour, which has been mixed with 50 grams of caster sugar and a pinch of salt, we add 2 large eggs, 6 tablespoons of melted butter, half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and finally our yeast mixture. You could use a mixer with dough attachment for the next step. However, I do prefer to knead and mix by hand. This way I get a feel for the dough. Initially, when mixed, this is going to seem too wet. Please resist the urge to add flour. This is perfect as it is. Keep moving the dough rapidly. I use a repeated scoop-like motion, allowing the flour to strengthen and the gluten strands in the dough to form. It is these strands that trap the air and allow the dough to rise. Eventually, after a painful arm, you'll have a smooth looking dough that is still quite sticky to touch. Cover this and allow it to proof in a warm environment until the dough has doubled in size. Empty the proved dough onto a floured surface. Don't worry so much about knocking the air out, as we're going to be rolling this to around 1.5cm thickness. Take a large cookie cutter, use a cream egg to predict the size you're going to need, and cut out circles of the donut dough. Now I only used 9 cream eggs and then had enough for another 10 or so donuts. These could be filled with other fillings, or alternatively, if you are following this recipe, use more cream eggs. Wrap each cream egg in a circle of dough and roll gently in each hand to form a ball shape, ensuring the edges are carefully sealed. Cover these and allow to rest for another 1 hour. Now the fluctuating temperature in my kitchen meant this second rise was not that good. However, they did turn out perfectly fine. The dough was around 30% bigger after the second proof. To cook, we preheat a deep fat fryer to around 160 degrees C and gently fry these for around 5 minutes, turning halfway through. When cooked, remove and drain excess oil from the donut balls onto a kitchen towel before rolling the donuts in either caster sugar like myself or a mixture of caster sugar and cinnamon for a more traditional flavour. Serve with a mellow vanilla ice cream or whipped cream. This helps to offset the incredible sweetness of this dish. And there you have it, the best donut recipe ever, Cadbury's cream egg stuffed donuts.
you will need 300 grams beef of choice. London broil, skirt steak or flank steak is generally recommended. However, this can be difficult to source in a standard supermarket in the UK, so I've used beef medallions, which generally come from a tenderloin. And we're very thinly slicing this with our knife, making it as thin as possible. We're then going to add it in a mixing bowl. Into that mixing bowl, we're going to add 1 egg and 2 tablespoons of Shaoxing wine. We're then going to cover it in 3 to 4 tablespoons of corn flour or potato starch, preferably if you do have it. And I'm going to give that a good mix until it forms a thick paste. We're going to take 2 bell peppers, any colour. We're going to peel, deseed and remove the membrane before thinly slicing the pepper halves, ready for our stir fry. As you can see, I'm trying my best to use the claw method to slice my peppers. I don't think I did too badly, they're nice and even and a good enough shape for our recipe. Then I'll take 6 to 7 spring onions. I'm going to remove the bases, trim them. We're going to slice the white for use as frying in the main dish. And then we're going to take our spring onion greens and we're going to slice these into quite generous chunks. I like to add these to add a bit of vibrancy to the dish and a bit of texture. We're then going to measure out 2 tablespoons of Shaoxing and 2 tablespoons of dark soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of tomato ketchup, any brand will do, and 2 tablespoons of sweet chilli. I use Blue Dragon here. And then finally 2 to 3 tablespoons of dark brown sugar, depending on how sweet you want the dish. We're then going to take a thumb-sized piece of ginger, peel it, preferably using the back of a spoon, is nice and simple. Slice it, matchstick it, and then finally chop the matchsticks and give it a final chop just to make sure that we have some nice small pieces ready for frying. We're then going to take 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of garlic before crushing them with a blade and then chopping again till they are finely diced. Again, feel free to go crazy with the garlic or ginger depending on your own tastes. Ginger and garlic is used in quite a lot of Chinese cooking. In fact, I can't think of a recipe that doesn't use one, the other, or both. And I always have a nice stock in the kitchen. I would say a fridge, but I've started placing them in a bowl. I find that they keep a little bit better. And our final ingredient, and again, this is by choice depending on how much spice you want. My partner doesn't like too much spice, so we take 1 red chilli and I thinly slice this. You can deseed if you wish, however, I did decide to keep the seeds with this and throw them into the dish. Now again, this is personal choice. You can throw it in during the cooking, use it as a garnish, or both. We're then going to take our mixing bowl, fill it with 100 grams of corn flour or potato starch before adding a 1 to 2 teaspoons of Chinese white spice, a little bit of MSG, king of flavour, before adding our beef that has been resting away in the egg and corn flour mixture from before. And this is the part which becomes very sticky on the hands. So we're going to continuously mix this into the corn flour till all the beef is separated and firmly coated in our corn flour, potato starch, 5 spice mixture. And the rest is literally 5 minutes of cooking. We're going to take our wok, we're going to heat it till smoking, add a ladle full of oil, around 100 mils or so I think. And when our test piece of beef is bubbling away, we can then add our beef to fry. This will take, depending on the size of the pieces, no longer than 2 to 3 minutes. We are going to rest this to one side, so it will continue the cooking process. So if it is a little bit rare, it does not matter. As you can see, it's got a nice brown colour to it, so we're going to remove this from the oil and fry the rest in batches. Now before our next step, we will drain the oil, but all we're going to do is wipe the pan down. We're not going to clean it. We want a lot of that flavour from the beef to remain in the wok. So again, we bring the wok up to smoking before adding 2 to 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and then we're going to throw in our spring onion whites. Now I didn't have control of this heat, and unfortunately some of the whites did start to catch a little bit, but managed to save it just before burning. So took it off the heat, gave it a good stir, continued stirring these whites, make sure that they didn't catch any more. And then we added our peppers and our garlic. Now I must admit, originally I was only going to make a small dish. However, I decided to make all 3 family members at once. So halfway through the process I decided to throw in a few more ingredients. However, I've just added my pepper and my ginger. And then I'm going to add my soy sauce and shouting wine. Then I added a little bit more because I realised I was going to actually add more of the peppers to the dish and cook 3 bowls at once rather than 1. So then the rest of my peppers, my rest of my spring onion whites, and then I add my sweet chilli, give it a stir through. It really is very quick to cook at this stage. After that's heated through, I then add my garlic. I tend to add it later in the recipe because I find that sometimes if your wok is too hot it can catch the garlic. So what I like to do is add it at this stage because I find that if it's finely diced enough it usually takes around a couple of minutes to cook through completely. And sometimes it's nice to have that fresh garlic taste. I add my ketchup and my sugar. And that's our sauce base all ready. We're then going to throw in our beef. And we're going to warm that beef within the mixture. Now, if you've cooked your beef 1 to 2 hours early, that's fine. It just needs a couple of minutes more. We then throw our spring onion greens at the very last few minutes. And if you want a spicy dish at this point, you can add some sliced chili. I chose not to on this occasion. You can just see those beautiful colours there. That's now ready for serving. So what I've done is cook some rice off to one side. I go for 1 cup of rice to 1 cup of water. Cook it till the water runs dry and then steam dry for another 10 minutes. And there is our delicious, sticky, sweet, crispy chili beef. As a final addition, we're going to add a little bit of a chili garnish, because who doesn't like a chili garnish? And there we have it. I hope you enjoyed the recipe. Thank you very much for watching. If on Facebook, please feel free to comment, share, save or follow the page. Remember, my videos appear first on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe over there. Today's recipe is a continuation from Tuesday's Shrove Tuesday episode. The best seafood pancake you will ever taste. Salmon and king prawns, sliced mushroom within a beautifully creamy dill and cheese sauce, enveloped within a soft, thin pancake. Enjoy the recipe and ensure you carefully watch to the end of the video to see all ingredients and hear all instruction. As per the last episode, we mix in a bowl 100 grams of plain flour, 2 whole eggs, 300 ml of milk and a pinch of salt. We whisk the ingredients together until a smooth liquid is formed. We can then strain the mixture into another bowl to ensure no lumps of flour remain. The next step is extremely important. We need to leave this rest for at least 30 minutes. This allows the gluten in the flour to relax. We make pancakes just like we did in the last episode. You can click on the card above now to see a more detailed version of this. For the filling, we start by dry frying 150 grams of sliced mushrooms with a pinch of kosher salt. I recently found out that dry frying rather than using oil or butter allows the mushrooms to cook in their own juices, heightening the flavour of the mushrooms. It really is a noticeable difference. We then make a basic roux with 50 grams of butter and 50 grams of flour, cooking out the flour. This takes around 2 minutes until the smell of the flour has dissipated. We can then slowly start adding our milk, around 400 ml in total. This is all done by eye. It really does depend on how thick or loose you want your sauce. We add the milk in small amounts, continuously whisking to avoid the sauce catching on the pan. If it gets too thick, you can add a little more milk, continuing this process until the sauce is of a desired thickness. As we are adding fish and cheese to this mixture, it is best to have it just slightly thinner than your desired consistency. We then add around 70 grams of finely grated cheddar and a good generous handful of chopped dill plus seasoning. Once this is warmed through, we can add around 200 grams of salmon. As mine was substituted in the shopping, I used flesh from frozen fillets. It's not the highest of quality, but it is certainly suitable for a recipe such as this, and even more so if you're on a budget. We simmer this with the sliced mushrooms for 5 minutes before adding 170 grams of deveined and shelled king prawns. There will be a card here that will show you how to do this. The prawns will take around 3 to 4 minutes. You can afford to go to the 3 minutes mark, as this will continue cooking in the sauce whilst the pancakes are being filled with a mixture. For the pancakes, it initially doesn't look appetising admittedly, however this is short-lived. We're going to place a generous dollop, pardon the phrase, of a fish sauce mixture onto one side of the pancake. Then, like a burrito, we will fold the sides in before rolling the pancake over itself, forming a nice little seafood parcel. Once these are done, we then top this with some more grated cheddar and a few sprigs of dill. And there you have it, a delicious seafood stuffed pancakes, possibly the best seafood pancake you'll ever taste. Another fine recipe for Pancake Week in the UK. Hello, welcome to another full-length instructional recipe for the Faceless Chef UK, and something a little different to the usual. Today's meal is a simple, delicious and selectively spiced chicken chimichanga with homemade guacamole and a simple chunky salsa. Everything but the sauce and frying at the end can be done ahead of time, meaning your meal only takes 5 minutes cooking prior. Superb and quick if prepared in advance. Enjoy the recipe and ensure you carefully watch to the end of the video to see all ingredients and instructions. We start with around 600 grams of chicken breast, which is placed in a pan. You may wish to add thighs for more flavour. We coat this in chicken stock before covering and then simmering on medium heat for around 45 minutes or until the chicken pulls away with ease, with the use of a fork as demonstrated here. The chicken can then be cooled and refrigerated until needed much later on. And now on to the sides. To make the chunky salsa, we take 4 tomatoes, quarter before removing seeds, then chopping into small chunks before placing the chunks into a container to start our salsa mix. We then take half a red onion, of which the other half goes to our guacamole. We make slices horizontally, 2 should be enough, followed by slices every ½ centimetre or so vertically to allow us to then cut along the length
to achieve a finely diced onion. We then add this to the pot before taking 3 cloves of garlic, finally chopping these into small chunks, adding this to the mixture. We then add a generous helping of coriander, which we chop roughly, before adding the juice of 1 lime, followed by some salt, and a teaspoon, and a dash of white wine vinegar. We then can use a pestle to roughly bring the ingredients together. We don't need this pasty, however, just nicely mixed. We want it to have a bit of a bite and remain quite chunky. There are those who prefer a smooth, slightly runnier salsa, and to do that, just keep the seeds within the tomatoes, add the ingredients to a blender, and carefully pulse. To make a simple guacamole, we can take 4 ripe small avocados. A little tip here, if they're not quite ripe enough, stick them in the microwave for a few seconds. Halving each avocado, we then remove the stone before making incisions down the length of the inside, then the width. We can then flip the skin inside out, and with these remove all the avocado. To our chopped avocado, we're going to add the juice of a full lime, and then the other half of the red onion that we saved from earlier. Again, finely dicing this very carefully. We're then going to take 2 cloves of garlic, and again finely dice these before adding them to the mixture. Once they're diced and added, we're going to take another 2 to 3 tomatoes, and again half, then quarter before de-seeding, and finally dicing and adding to our guacamole mix. Before chopping another bunch of coriander quite coarsely, a little seasoning, and then again with a pestle and mortar we're going to bring these ingredients together. This is all personal choice at this stage. If you want it chunky, don't mash it too much. If you like it smooth like Mrs. Faceless, give it a good old mashing. Again, another option. Some people do like a little bit of a kick to their guacamole, so feel free to mash in some red chilli at this stage as well. Both those sides can be placed in the refrigerator and left to rest for around 2 hours, or preferably 12 hours. We then take a frying pan and add 240 ml of passata sauce. I left a little to later on. I used the thickness with the chicken to judge whether or not more sauce was needed. Bringing this to a boil, we're then going to add 1 teaspoon each of ground coriander, ground paprika, ground cumin, and at this point, again optional for strength, I added 1 teaspoon of red chili powder. You might want to go for a full tablespoon if you like that real big kick of heat. Once all those ingredients are melded together, we throw in our shredded chicken from earlier, and we mix this thoroughly with the sauce, making sure to heat it fully through. Now the other way you could do this is, rather than letting the chicken cool, you could do this step first and then chill the whole mixture later when you need the chimichangas.
I'd already cooled this chicken, so I didn't really want to cool it again to reheat. So I then went straight on to the assembly of our chimichangas. So whilst preheating a deep fat fryer to 150 degrees C, or if you want a healthy version, 200 degrees C in the oven, we're going to take one large tortilla wrap. We then place a small layer of refried beans. This isn't homemade, this is simply taken from a can. I use the old El Paso range. We then take a generous portion of our chicken mix before topping with a generous portion of grated cheese, or enough cheese for your own tastes. We then fold the sides of the tortilla inwards with a little bit of difficulty. I did a bit of a mash-up job of this. So you fold your sides and then you roll from the bottom to the top of the tortilla to make a nice little parcel. Once our tortillas are made, we're going to fry them at medium heat for around 8 minutes, rolling if needed. Be careful though, the tortillas can puff up and rise. You may wish to use a slotted spoon to press down gently whilst the chimichangas cook. You can ignore my fat hand in the way there, blurring the vision. Finally, we can serve our chimichangas alongside some fresh lime, salad leaves, tomatoes, a generous serving of sour cream, garnished with some chopped coriander, and then not forgetting our beautiful chunky salsa and our smooth guacamole. Hello, welcome to another full-length instructional recipe for the Faceless Chef UK. A popular UK favourite this evening, one that goes well on a Sunday in place of a roast dinner. The easiest and cheapest cottage pie recipe you will ever need to use. This recipe is fantastically easy to prepare and cook. This isn't supposed to be full of ingredients, it's a cheap and easy go-to, no frills meal that doesn't hit the pocket and tastes absolutely delicious. You could add dozens of herbs, red wine, etc, high quality chopped beef, but that will be shown another day. Enjoy the recipe and ensure you carefully watch to the end of the video. We start by gently placing around 500 grams peeled and cut into small chunks of white potato in salted water and placing on to boil. We boil for approximately 10 minutes until a knife goes through the potato chunks with ease. Drain the potatoes and steam dry. You may wish to reserve the water to add to our beef stock for the gravy later. Once dried, we push our potatoes through a ricer to ensure no lumps before adding a generous 30 grams or so of butter and seasoning if needed. Mashing together thoroughly. For a creamy taste, you may wish to add 2 tablespoons of double cream at this stage. As I was adding cheese, I chose not to on this occasion. We then gently fry 2 onions being diced until soft and golden before adding 750 grams of beef mince. I used 5% fat. There is an argument for higher fat content, but this still tastes incredibly delicious and is a little bit nicer on the waistline. We cook this over a medium heat until browned before removing from the stove and draining the excess fat into a pan. We're going to reserve this till later on. Returning to the stove, we then add a generous tablespoon of Dorsetshire sauce or Worcestershire sauce before then adding 2 tablespoons of tomato puree and at least 500 ml of beef stock. We simmer this mixture for a good 20 minutes before adding a generous helping of frozen peas. A lot of traditionalists, will prefer to add chopped carrots. However, I am feeding a family and Mini Faceless does not like cooked carrot, despite loving it raw. So I tried to make family meals as accommodating as possible. We're going to cook this mixture until the liquid has all but evaporated.
Taste for seasoning before removing from the heat and placing in a roasting dish. We then top this with a mash from earlier and place a generous serving of grated cheese before placing in a 200 degrees centigrade preheated oven for 30 minutes or until the cheese is nice and golden and bubbling. For the gravy, we take the reserved fat from earlier. We heat this through before adding 3 tablespoons of flour and thoroughly whisking. We cook the flour out before gently adding beef stock in small doses and continuously whisking this to ensure a no lump and smooth mixture. As this is flour based, the gravy can look a little pale in colour, so a quarter teaspoon of browning or so helps to give that deep brown colour that traditional beef gravy is normally associated with. And there you have it, a delicious, easy and cheap cottage pie topped with mature cheddar cheese, the easiest and cheapest cottage pie you will ever need to make. I hope you enjoyed following the video, and more importantly, if following the recipe, I hope you find it as delicious as the Faceless family did. Hello, welcome to another full-length instructional video for Faceless Chef UK. Today's recipe is one for the UK fans. As it is Shrove Tuesday today, it makes sense to show you the best pancake recipe. 2 ways throughout the week, one sweet, one savoury. Both are sure to impress. We'll start with a simple pancake served with a traditional lemon and caster sugar, followed by a beautifully creamy, cheesy, herby seafood stuffed pancakes, plus maybe a couple of other fun recipes. Both equally enjoyable, and both sure to fill hungry mouths with ease. Enjoy the recipes and ensure you carefully watch to the end of the video to see all ingredients and hear all instructions. For the best pancake recipe, we mix in a bowl 100 grams of plain flour, 2 whole eggs, a pinch of salt and 300 ml of milk. We whisk the ingredients together until a smooth liquid is formed. We then strain this mixture into another bowl to ensure no lumps of flour remain. The next step is extremely important. We need to leave this to rest for at least 30 minutes. I went for my usual 2 hours, but this allows the gluten in the flour to relax and the starch grains to swell. This ensures the pancakes come out lovely, light and fluffy. A couple of tips for cooking. Something I learned from years of failed attempts. Keep the hob on a medium heat. Use a kitchen towel to wipe oil around the surface of a pan and place some of the batter into the pan, giving it a good twirl or shake, whatever works, to coat the base of the pan. The key is to have just enough to make a layer so as to not have a pancake that is too thick or stodgy. Rather than waiting, turning, checking, pinching, if you're using a non-stick pan, the pancake is ready for flipping if you're brave enough, or turning when it moves in the pan without being forced. You'll also start to see patches where the pancake is no longer attached to the base of the pan and it will glide along with ease. We then flip and cook for around 30 more seconds before placing on a plate, making it look as presentable as possible. I mean, how attractive can you make a sprinkling of sugar and lemons? And we serve. And there you have it, the best pancake recipe ever. Simple, quick and delicious. I served mine with lemon and sugar, as you will see later this week. You can also fill it with savoury ingredients such as fish or other delightfully sweet ingredients like cherries. We are trying to a Black Forest take on this later this week. Tune in to see that video. I'm going to take a pork loin joint, about 2 kilograms. The reason I use pork loin is simple. It's tasty and tender whilst being good on the budget. Firstly, we're going to carefully remove the skin and fat layer from the meat. See the video later this week to see what I did with this remaining flesh. So as you can see, I'm taking great care to just slice between the skin layer and the meat, trying my very best not to slice my fingers off. Again, my knife cutting skills aren't particularly the best. I wouldn't recommend using my method to take the skin off, but if it works, it works. After removing the layer, we're going to cut the loin into evenly sized pieces before placing these pieces into a bowl, to which we're going to add around 3 tablespoons of dark brown sugar, followed by 2 tablespoons or so of muscovado,
And then onto our liquids, we're going to add around 50 ml of honey and another 50 ml of maple syrup. Again, I do a lot of this by eyesight, but these are just rough ideas, so you can obviously tweak the recipe to suit your own flavours and tastes. Then add 100 ml of hoisin sauce. Now, if you can't get hold of hoisin sauce, you can substitute ketchup mayonnaise, which is a sweet soy sauce. My daughter loves it. We're then going to add 3 tablespoons of Shaoxing wine, 3 tablespoons of dark and light soy sauce, before adding 1 teaspoon of 5 spice powder, which will be coming up soon. There we go. Followed by 2 tablespoons, or 2 generous tablespoons of fermented bean curd. This is a fermented red bean curd. And for that extra red colour, I add a teaspoon of a red food colouring. I do warn you, this stuff is potent. You only need a tiny amount. Once that's all in, we're going to get our hands straight into the bowl and actually mix that thoroughly until every inch of each piece of meat is thoroughly coated in marinade. We're then going to wrap that up and leave this for around 24 hours and allow those flavours to deepen. When needed, we're going to preheat an oven to 200 degrees centigrade, which is about 400 Fahrenheit, before spacing evenly the meat on a wire rack and placing this in the preheated oven. Unfortunately, my video did cut out. There is a recipe for chow shared earlier this year, but we're going to take the remaining marinade from the bowl and we're going to reduce that in a pan until it forms a thick slurry. And then every 10 minutes we're going to take the pork out of the oven and baste each piece of the pork with a thickened mixture. We'll continue to do this until the internal temperature of our pork reaches between 63 degrees or 68 degrees Celsius or 145 to 155 Fahrenheit. I go for the lower end as the meat is then rested for 10 minutes, so then it will continue to cook slowly. We can then slice the char siu and either cool and freeze for later use or use it immediately. I tend to like to steal a couple of pieces for me, but for the chow mein I did use a pre-made frozen pack, which we then took out of the freezer 24 hours before and defrosted. So there you have our nice char siu recipe. Simple, easy to follow, and the longest it takes is just 24 hours sat in the fridge marinating. Very little hands-on time is needed. And now on to our chow mein. The first thing we do is take 300 grams of 3 dried batches of Lucky Boat No. 1 noodles, or any other thick dry egg noodle will be fine. We're going to coat it in a freshly boiled kettle of water, and all we're going to do is leave that for 5 minutes. We're then going to drain the noodles, leave them to steam dry. Some people do prefer to wash them in cold water to stop the cooking process, but I find 5 minutes is enough time and not too much time that your noodles end up overcooked. And once they're steam dried, we're going to place them on a tray, spread them out to avoid them sticking to one another. And then we're on to our prep for the chow mein. We'll take our pre-made char siu and we're going to chop this into small bite-sized pieces. I literally empty them out of the tub and then just slice them lengthways. Did the job. After that, we're going to get 200 grams of bean sprouts. Now, the bean sprouts are very quick to cook, so those are going to be one of the last things we place into the chow mein. We're also going to take not 1, not 2, but 4 pieces of garlic. go. And then you have an option here. A lot of people do traditionally like to fan chop them. I like to slice them in a mandarin. And then take 2 small brown onions, peel half and then finally slice them. Before taking a bunch of spring onions, removing the whites and the heads. The whites were used in another recipe. I'm going to take off any remaining green bits that are looking a bit haggard, and then we're going to chop our green bits into 2-inch pieces. And then we're going to take our wok and preheat it till smoking. To that wok, we are going to add a ladleful or so of vegetable oil. Make sure that it's coating the whole of the pan. This will help to further season the wok for future. We're then going to add our onions first, remembering to continuously stir these so they don't stick. When they've softened, we're going to add our char siu, and we're going to cook that through till it's just warming up. Everything from here is pretty quick. We then throw in our noodles, ensuring to toss it through so everything is nice and mixed. To that, we're going to add some soy sauce, and I think I missed it on my video, a bit of sesame oil, before adding our bean sprouts and our spring onion greens at the very last minute. We're literally just going to warm them through to allow a bit of crunch to still exist from the bean sprouts. And there we go. There's our delicious char siu chow mein. Thank you very much for watching. If on Facebook, please feel free to comment, share, save or follow the page. Remember, my videos do appear first on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe over there. If you are on YouTube, please leave a comment, hit that subscribe button, grab a friend, get them to subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification button to see me. We are going to get ourselves a pan and put all the ingredients for the orange sauce. That's the garlic, the chopped ginger, the sugar, followed by the light brown sugar, the rice wine vinegar, the soy sauce, and the orange juice. We're going to put that on a hob and we're going to cook that through until everything is combined and the sauce mixture begins to thicken. Once the sauce has cooked through and cooked down a little, we're going to add the corn flour slurry to thicken the sauce to desired consistency before removing from the hob for later use. And now onto the chicken. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to dice our chicken and brine it in water and 2 tablespoons of salt. To do that, we're just going to cut the chicken into small 2cm chunks or so, and then we're going to soak it in water with 2 tablespoons of salt for around 2 hours. We're then going to add the chicken after it's brined to the first lot of corn flour, and we're going to add a little bit of MSG to that, and we're going to thoroughly coat. What I didn't put on the video is the next step is that we're going to add 1 egg to the chicken, and we're going to mix that together to form like a thick batter. We're then going to prepare our next corn flour bath with corn flour and our 2 tablespoons of custard powder. We're going to throw in our pre-battered chicken, and again we're going to thoroughly coat this until every bit is coated in corn flour and comes apart with ease from each piece. We're then going to fry that at around 180 degrees C, between 170 and 180 is fine, for around 3 to 5 minutes. The chicken should just about be cooked. It doesn't matter if it's a little bit under, because once we remove and drain on a kitchen towel, it is going to continue cooking, and then when we come to frying it with the orange sauce, it will cook that a little bit more. Once it's drained and cooked, we're going to preheat a wok before adding our chicken that's been pre-cooked and our orange sauce. Yes, the pan does look dirty, but I had done a portion prior to that, and here we go with a finished article, a lovely sweet sticky orange chicken. Can be served with anything really, but I chose on this occasion to serve it with rice and garnish it with spring onion greens. I hope you enjoy this as much as I did. As per usual, if you would like to leave a comment, please do so, or hit that like and subscribe button, or click the notification button to be informed of future episodes. I have linked 2 previous episodes. If you would like to go and have a look at them, please do so. Have a lovely evening. Goodbye.